How are you guys? My name is Ana Stephanie Munoz. Today we're talking about how hypnosis can help with stress and anxiety. Thank you for joining our live. It will last around 30 to 45 minutes. And you can watch it in Facebook or in YouTube. So if you hear me well, please comment below. And from which part of the world you're hearing us and I'm sorry, I'm thinking in Spanish. From which part of the world you're listening to us and watching us. Our guest today is a psychotherapist specialized in hypnosis. She trains clinicians to do hypnosis in their clinical practice, and she leads workshops using hypnosis as the organizing principle for change. So, if you want to find out more about our lives or want to join our weekly lives, I'm going to give you the link there. Most of the lives are in Spanish, however, I do some in English. And I want to tell you that my company, Exceed Your Potential, or in Spanish, Excede tu Potencial, we are a virtual coaching platform where you learn to manage mind and emotions through self-knowledge and self-awareness, through programs, workshops, retreats, and tools that help professionals discover their potential and live a balanced and peaceful life. So discover, unleash, and exceed your potential. I'm an expert in stress and anxiety management, and I help to improve your life. I want to tell you that we just relaunched our website. It's called excedetupotencial.com. And I'm going to leave you the link there so you can go and look, like all the different things we have, all the different free tools and programs and workshops that we're currently running. And now, with no further ado, I want you to meet our special guest today. Her name is Nancy Winston. She has incorporated her work with Milton Erickson. She's an MD in hypnosis with her work with Charlotte Silver in sensory awareness as a unique approach in practicing psychotherapy. She had led workshops and trained clinicians around the world. She has worked with performers, with actors, and professional athletes. She has been doing a long-time workshop in Esalen Institute and has been one of the chosen by Dr. Milton Erickson to present at the first Ericksonian conference. And let me tell you guys, this is huge. I'm a really, really big fan of Milton Erickson, and I would have loved have met him. I didn't, but his work is truly amazing. For all of you who have learned NLP, he's kind of like a grandfather for it. And for all the psychologists, psychiatrists, everyone, his work has changed the world tremendously. So, Nancy, with no further ado, I'm so excited to have you here today. I don't know if you have any words to say hi to the audience today.
Hi, audience. Hi, audience. I hope you have a good time. Yes, and learn something about hypnosis and what you can do and how hypnosis is a natural phenomenon that we all do and learning how to direct it in some way to achieve whatever goals that you want, which are, in this case, stress management and reducing anxiety. But hypnosis can be used for many other things like pain control and creativity and tapping into a part of your brain that we usually don't pay attention to. So that is my thought for today.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
I normally want to start always engaging the audience. Sometimes they're shy, but sometimes they participate a lot. And I want to invite you all to ask questions to Nancy now that she's here. However, I want to start with the first question to the audience. And this is about what your experience has been with hypnosis. If you just have heard of it, or if you know someone that has done it, or if you have done it yourself, or if you practice it as part of your practice, if you're a therapist or a coach and you use hypnosis. So, well, the audience answered that, Nancy.
Good.
I would love to ask you something. If you can explain to us, for the people that it's the first time they hear about it, or they have heard, but you're not really sure how it all works, or have this thing that maybe it's something negative, because we've heard hypnosis kind of like sometimes people think that, if I hypnotize you and I tell you talk like a chicken, you will talk like a chicken forever or something.
I thought that.
Yeah, me too. We were there before learning about
Yeah,
hypnosis.
sure.
Me too. But to how do you say in English, demystify that, that thing,
Yeah.
or that I don't know, that thing that you think.
Okay.
Can you explain to us what hypnosis really is and how does it work?
Well, so I'll give you 3 functional definitions. Okay, the first one is focused attention in some one direction, which means that consciously in our everyday life, our attention is split. We're listening to me, we're thinking about, oh, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Oh, I have to get the clothes out of the cleaners. Oh, I have this bill to pay. So we're pretty occupied in 2 directions most of the time. So when we have the experience of really concentrating, all of our attention is focused in the same direction. And that's basically hypnosis. It's where anything that's not relevant to what you're paying attention to is not in your awareness. So we don't get static from irrelevant thoughts. And it's getting a really clear channel or signal on the TV. So that's the first definition. Another definition that I like is it's a special state of learning where we are open to new ideas. And you think about that, and how often do we actually have a new idea? We usually have the same idea. It's updated a little bit, but it's basically the same. And so this is the ability to learn something new. And so that's another definition. Another definition, and this one I like too, is directed spontaneity.
I like that one,
Isn't that
especially
a
for
nice
people
one?
especially for people like me that like to have control,
Right,
even though it's,
exactly.
it's just in my imagination.
Yeah,
But,
right, right.
I like that. I
Yeah,
love
no,
that
we all
definition.
do. Yeah. And so it's a great definition because we are directing, which is so, it's oxymoronic
Exactly.
because, yeah, because we're directing spontaneity. Well, spontaneity is spontaneity. So that's another definition. So I like to use any or all of them.
I like that. Yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is a new definition.
Yeah. Good.
Awesome. I want to share with you Silvana. Silvana, it's great to have you here. Welcome. And she says, I haven't used it, but heard about very positive developments, especially in the area of pain, anxiety, and panic.
Yes. Yes. It's great with pain control. And I remember having a root canal, and so I went to the dentist, and it was an emergency root canal, and he was going to do whatever you do in a root canal, and I said, no, I'm going to use hypnosis. He went nuts. No, you don't mean that. I said, no, I'm really going to do hypnosis. I don't want anesthesia. Anyway, so I did self-hypnosis, and I put myself in a trance, and I told the dentist, I said, listen, I promise you, I don't like pain. If it hurts, I'll let you know, and I'll have anesthesia. It was maybe 20 seconds of pain, and all the rest was fine.
Wow.
And I walked out. I had no swelling, and yeah, and I did that twice. It's great for pain management. If you think about pain, it's an accumulation of a lot of experiences. So when usually we have pain, it's not just the pain that we're having now. We're having the memory of pain of all those other times that we've had pain. So hypnosis is great to block those other moments in time. So you're just present for what's actually happening now. And hypnosis is great for being present. Often,
Wow.
oftentimes I like to work in a trance state because time slows down and you get a lot more information because your visuals are much slower.
I love that. Now that you mentioned, I haven't thought about doing that in my coaching practice. I center myself, but it's different to center yourself as to do self-hypnosis to be completely present. I
Yeah,
will I will start doing that.
try that. Milton Erickson would say he would start to work, or he would know when he was ready to work, when the rug in his office would rise about 5 feet. And then he knew
Wow.
he was ready to work.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, we talk with you that I was asking Nancy, we were together on a retreat. She was one of the teachers. So to tell, the audience. And I was asking Nancy that I've been looking for books where they're all Milton Erickson stories because they are mind blowing of all the things with students, with patients, with the different experiences he had, like the way he handled things. It was unbelievable. I love his stories.
Me too. Me too. Did you get that book, by the way?
Yes, one of the two that you
Okay.
recommended, I got it. I haven't started reading it because I know I will, like go step by because you have to read the stories and really
I
grab
know.
it. But
I
yeah,
know.
I got one. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So yeah, and something, it's really interesting. We were talking previously about, like we had this awful idea of what hypnosis is. And I would like you to ask you if you can tell us the difference between hypnosis when you as a therapist do hypnosis to someone and when you teach somebody how to do self-hypnosis.
Yeah. Uh, I think one of the contributions that Erickson brought to the field is that it's natural phenomena that we start to align in some one direction. So it's not hocus pocus, and it's not the hypnotist. It's the hypnotist communicating with the client to create an atmosphere where the client goes into trance. I don't do it as the hypnotist. I just provide the environment for the client to go into trance. And that's a big difference from traditional hypnosis, which was that it was all the control and all the powers in the hands of the hypnotist. And it's not. It's in the hands of the client who's coming to see you. So
Exactly.
that's the first thing. And the other is that hypnosis is just suggestion. That as a hypnotist, I can suggest whatever, like you'll be a chicken and walk around like that until I snap my fingers in 2 days, after you lay a couple of eggs. So that's not true either. Because if I could just give suggestions, I'd be very rich. It's like, okay, in 5 minutes, that symptom would just disappear. You don't need to have it anymore. And we can move on with our lives. But it doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember when I learned how to do hypnosis and self hypnosis. One of the things my teacher taught us was like, the person that's doing the process always has control. That
Yeah.
person decides, and as you were
Yeah.
saying, you suggest as the therapist or as the, that like kind of like the person that helps the people get into the trance. You suggest things, but at the end you decide as as a patient, as a client, what to do with that information and if it makes sense to you.
Right. And if I want to continue to challenge the hypnotist, I did that with Erickson. I need, in order to feel safe, whatever that was, I need to challenge him and say, "Oh, you can't put me into trance." And he just went along until I realized, why am I challenging him? I really want to go into trance. And
Exactly.
and I realized, oh, it was just me. I just needed to do that until I was ready to go into trance. Yeah. So
That's so cool. So,
I think sometimes we just need to do that just to test our own power.
yeah, yeah, to see how far we can come.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
And as you
Yeah.
say, I think when you start doing, and it has happened to me when I started doing self hypnosis, like it starts opening up things, but you
Yeah.
really don't know and understand. And it's until you practice it that you start kind of like understanding like the direction that you're going in, what makes sense to you, because it's very different from person to person, right?
Yeah, every trance is different. So some people want the same trance all the time, and the
Yeah.
trance is different depending on what you're exploring and what kind of state you're in at that point in time. And for let's say for pain control, you could be fully awake and only have one part of your body go into trance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and
I
then
like
sometimes,
that.
yeah, it's really nice, and a lot of times people are fully aware of what's going on,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
they may not care what's going on, which is the difference.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah,
And I have another question there. And I remember I asked you this when we were at Omega, because something that happens to me when I go into meditations or self hypnosis or hypnosis with someone else is that I feel I go to sleep.
yeah. I
You
love
know,
that.
but when the person that's doing the hypnosis, the meditation, the whole process, then says, "Okay, then you're going to breathe 3 times and then open your eyes," and I do it. I'm like, "Did I
Yeah,
fall asleep? Was that?" But I don't remember anything. So if you
which
can
is
tell us,
great. Oh,
uh
that's one of the suggestions as a hypnotist that you sometimes put into a trance is you don't have to remember anything. Because as soon as we start to remember something, we start to process it with our conscious mind. And as soon as we start to process something with our conscious mind, we've already incorporated it into what we already know. And we want to keep what we've discovered from our unconscious separate from what we already know until it starts to incorporate into our everyday life without having to think about it first. So it's great not to have to remember. And that state of feeling like you're falling asleep, the more practice you have in that state, you start to realize there's a qualitative difference in that trance state and a sleep state. And I could feel it viscerally. I could feel that I'm working, which is not sleep.
yeah.
But at first, that's what it feels like until you start to discern the subtleties of what that difference is.
Yeah. And I always ask that question. And until I ask you, I finally understood that for me, I'm in a trance state because I literally open my eyes when the person says, "Open your eyes."
There you go. It's amazing. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if someone out there has the same as me, you know that you're in a very deep trance state and you didn't fall asleep.
No. No.
Just receiving information in a different and maybe even more profound way. The thing is, you cannot articulate it, and it's not about you articulating it. It's just
Right.
about bringing it into yourself,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Until whatever that information is has been cooked enough to be included in the rest of your everyday state. And so oftentimes people don't realize, oh, I had a hypnotic response because it feels so usual and normal until the hypnotist will say, oh, but you've never done that before. Or, oh, that seems good. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah,
Exactly.
which is, yes, yes,
So
which is
thank you
really
very
nice.
much for saying that, because I know there's some more people like me that have that doubt and that have had that experience either doing hypnosis or meditation, and it's actually a good thing.
Yes,
Obviously, if the meditator or the person says, wake up and you're still asleep, that means you fall asleep. Right?
right. Or they just don't want to wake up. And I remember asking Erickson that question, like what happens if you induce a trance with somebody and they don't wake up? he said, well, then I start talking about having to go to the bathroom.
Oh, that's so funny. So they will
And
wake
I
up
start
because they need to go to the bathroom.
he said, I'll start talking about having a full bladder.
That's so funny. No, and he was
Yes,
like that, right? Like so obvious things that
yes,
I don't know. It's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I love his stories.
so that was one of them. Yeah. So because it's a concern, and I've had clients who don't wake up unless they're ready, or when I forget to tell them they don't have to remember anything. Sometimes they really need to have that very clear boundary that you don't have to remember anything that you've been discovering when you wake up until you're ready.
I love that because in the healing process,
Yes,
sometimes you need that because sometimes it's too much information and you're not ready
absolutely.
to
To
grab it
process
all.
it. Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
you learn in doing hypnosis the respect of the individual and respecting an individual's pace of learning and time of learning. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially, I think, time of receiving the information because sometimes it's way too heavy to receive.
Absolutely. I would do groups using hypnosis as the medium, and there's a lot that happens in a group consciously. So to imagine that you're working both consciously and then using trance as a modality, there is so much information and so much in the room that I can't process it consciously. So I walk out of a group and I can't tell you what goes on, but I will go to sleep that night and process it all in my dreams.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, because I can't do it consciously.
Yeah, no, and that's your process as well, as the safe container of the whole group,
Yes.
because that's what we do when we have a group that we're bringing into this place of healing. They
Yeah.
need to be, in a safe container, and they also and for as well for you as as the teacher, as the mentor, as the facilitator, you need to find out what's really going on.
Yes. Yes. And there is
Because
so much that is going on that is not articulated verbally.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you have to feel it, and then it
Ye-
starts.
Yes. Yes. And there's something that operates, and it's a different sense. It's a different sense than just feeling it or thinking it consciously. There's something else that goes on.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain, right? Because it's a very at a very subconscious level
Yes.
that we still cannot sometimes articulate, I think,
I think
because
that's true.
our mind is so rational and
Yes.
so
Yes.
linear, and this is, I
Yes.
think, like a cyclical
Yes.
thing that
Yes. And dimensional.
and dimensional. Yeah,
Yeah. So we can only think linearly.
yeah,
We could think in a lot of different directions, but we can only articulate linearly. And to realize that it's multidimensional, and that's the unconscious.
yeah.
And if you think about learning, I watch little kids a lot, and oftentimes the parent is so eager to hear what the kid has to learn. They say, "Oh, what did you learn? What did you learn?" Before the child has time to process it. So they have to repeat something to appease
Exactly.
the parent rather than giving themselves their own time and their own space to truly eat what it is that they're learning.
Yeah. No, and now that you say it, I see it with my son. That sometimes I ask him, what do you want to do with that information? And he's like, I don't know.
Right, right. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
And then like 2 days later, he's like, I thought about it and this is what I
There you
want to
go.
do.
This is it. Yes. And so often kids want to please their parents, and parents are wanting to know what it is you've learned immediately. And so they tell them something, but it hinders the process, the natural learning process.
Yeah. No, and sometimes he teases me. Like when he comes back from school, I'm like, okay, what did you learn today? Oh, nothing.
Yeah, right. Nothing. That's a big one.
I'm
I'm
like,
finally, right? I'm finally learning what my kids, 20 years later, what they learned in high school. Oh,
No, and
yeah,
when,
we learned that, Mom.
or then when he's learning German, so he's like, oh, and he starts talking to me in German. I'm like, you have learned many words by now. And he's
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, but he
yeah,
doesn't say I'm learning. He's just like,
exactly. It's just coming out.
yeah.
Yes, and I love that's that unconscious processes of
Hmm.
learning. Yeah,
Yeah, I like that. I
mm,
like that. Well, and I want to, go back to the audience and ask them a question
yes,
because I'm really interested in, and guys, ask Nancy whatever
yeah.
you feel like it regarding hypnosis because, she's here and she knows so much and she studied with Milton Erickson. That's amazing. I'll tell you that always. So, to the audience, I would like you to know if you have had experience with hypnosis. Can you tell us what are the benefits that it brought to you? Or if you know someone that did hypnosis and benefited from it, what happened? Or even, did a hypnosis and apparently it didn't work. That's another interesting story to tell because Nancy can explain us what might have happened there,
Right, right.
right? Mhm. And while this
Absolutely.
happens, Nancy, I would like to ask you, what are the benefits of hypnosis for stress and anxiety management?
Yeah. Well, think about stress. Stress affects all parts of us, our thinking,
Mhm.
especially. And we don't realize it because we think, oh, my heart beats fast, the immediacy of stress. My heart beats fast, my face gets tight, I start to get pains because I'm holding my body so rigidly. And then I can't think, or I think very, very limitedly. It affects our sleep. It could affect so many different aspects of our lives in our behaviors when we're stressed. And so, learning that you could sit down and take a deep breath and go into trance, because then you just learn self hypnosis and you go into trance and you start to communicate with your unconscious. And you say, okay, so what would be a question you'd ask your unconscious if you're really stressed? Is my unconscious willing to assist me in calming down? Is my unconscious willing to assist me in separating what's useful from the stress and what's not useful? So you could start to ask your unconscious a plethora of questions that it has answers to if you're willing to listen.
I love
So
that. And
yeah,
normally, how do you get those answers? Like, because each of us gets the answers in different ways. What
yes,
are the
yes.
most common ways you get those answers?
So a question would be, the first question would be, would my unconscious assist me in going into trance to, I hate the word, to de-stress is better.
Hmm.
Okay, rather than relax, as I have working with Charlotte Selver, she has a whole thing about relaxing, which is being floppy, and you don't want to be floppy.
No,
You want to be balanced. Yeah,
exactly.
like yeah. So I like the word de-stress better than relaxed. Anyway, so first is learning self hypnosis, and that's a whole other category. But it's relatively easy. You just look in the mirror. You set an alarm clock for 10 minutes, and you just look in the mirror.
I like that one. It's pretty easy, actually.
Yes, and you're the hypnotist.
Exactly.
And just to look. And so you don't have to think about time. And you ask your if it's willing to assist you in going into trance by looking at the person who's going to induce it for you, which is you.
Me too.
And
Uh-huh.
and you go and you look and you set your alarm and see what happens. And you'll wake up after 10 minutes.
That's amazing. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I like that technique.
It's a good technique because so often we spend so much of our time looking at everybody else. Yeah. And we look at ourselves for judgment, you know.
That's
It's like,
true.
do I look good today? Oh, is my makeup on? Oh, do I look very old? You know, whatever it is, we don't look just to see.
No, no, we're
Yeah,
looking for something, not just looking,
exactly.
not
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
present moment of looking our eyes
yeah,
or,
yeah,
concentrating
yeah,
on something.
yeah.
I like that.
So just to see who you are,
Mhm.
isn't that? So that's a good first technique.
Awesome. I like that. And, how does, for example, if the subconscious says yes or no, that it's going
Yes.
to help you, how does this yes or no come?
Uh, well, it's we all have. If you think about poker and they talk about tells, when the poker players they wear sunglasses or they wear a visor, because people will pay attention to if somebody has a good hand. We can't help but tell you that. Now it's not going to be verbal, but it's going to be um, with our eyes. Our eyes may dilate if we have a really good hand. They open up, and if we have a bad hand, they dilate small, or we have a tick, or we have something that a really good poker player pays attention to. Or I was watching something the other day where jury selection and really good lawyers pay attention to people's tells. Um, yeah,
So
to
cool.
see in picking the jury.
So it's a lot of practice. At the
It's
beginning, you
practice.
might you might
Yeah.
like go with in your mind like, oh, the subconscious says yes, but it was my mind saying yes, right?
Yeah. So you want to uh, not cheat yourself and
Hmm.
find out indeed what is your yes signal. When you say yes to something, what does that feel like? What happens when you say yes to something? And what you want to do is to gather all the yeses you've had in your life and have that accumulate into, let's say, a finger. So if you think about all the times you said yes in your life, and you said, oh my gosh, and all those experiences get centered into one finger so that your finger will say yes.
Yeah. I was going to ask you
Uh,
about muscle testing. I normally do muscle testing with myself.
yeah, there you go. It's the
Hmm.
same kind of phenomena that happens because it's autonomic. We're talking
Yeah.
about autonomic responses. And we're more than just our conscious awarenesses. When we respond on all of these dimensions of ourselves.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The
Yeah.
audience has been very shy. They haven't been asking
Oh,
questions. I
maybe they're in
really
trance. Maybe they're in trance, and we have to wake them up.
maybe the words you're using, maybe you put them into trance.
Maybe. Maybe. No
But
question.
we still have some times, and I want to ask another thing to the audience. Maybe they get out a little bit less shy. Is how now that Nancy talked about how hypnosis helps stress and anxiety. How do you deal normally with stress and anxiety in your lives? If you can
Yeah.
comment, and while you do that, I would like you to tell us, is there a formula to work hypnosis regardless of the profession? Are there different types or ways of doing it? I know we've been talking a little bit, the difference, especially about someone that's helping you going through to trance, and you doing self hypnosis and learning that how to do it
Yes.
yourself. But
Yes.
can you explain us further?
Okay. I'm not understanding quite what that anybody can do it. Anybody,
Hmm.
yes, anybody can do hypnosis with themselves.
Okay,
And I
cool.
remember there was a caveat in working with Erickson that he didn't want people to teach other people hypnosis if they did not have a degree. So he didn't want, let's say, because I was interested in teaching hypnosis, and he basically said, "Do not teach it. I don't want you to teach anybody who doesn't have a master's degree and above."
Wow. That's
Yeah,
interesting. But
yeah,
that was teaching
a long time
for
ago.
so people will do it with other people, or that was teaching so people will do self hypnosis?
It was to teach clinicians how to do hypnosis, and I think it comes off of like NLP would work with anybody to teach anybody
Yeah,
how to do that to work with other people. And not everybody is as ethical as
that's
you'd like
true.
them to.
No, and
Yeah,
yeah, we
and
see
I
that
think
in
it
every profession. Yeah, definitely.
so I think it had to do with ethics,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it had to do with experience, and that to respect the mode and the medium of hypnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and to realize that it could be used in a way that's not beneficial for people. I think ultimately people will know that. It's like buyer's remorse. You could be talked into something, but you don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
So people do know that. I think it was just his way of creating some kind of boundary
Yeah, no, and
around.
it makes sense, especially at the time. Things have changed ever since, but it
Yes,
makes completely sense. I believe it's really good that we all learn how to do self hypnosis.
yes, absolutely. I think self-hypnosis, we do self-hypnosis all the time.
We do it, but we don't know.
We don't know we're doing it. We tell, and if you think about it, the family we come from is the first hypnotic unit. So in some ways, it's like waking ourselves up uh, from some of the suggestions from some of the suggestions we had growing up as kids.
Yeah, yeah, all the and then you listen your mom's or dad's voice when doing
Yeah,
something or when something's happening. That's you going into trance of the trauma.
exactly, exactly. My mother was great. She said to me, she would say, "Oh, by the time you're married, that will disappear." So what was she was already suggesting, "I'm going to get married," but it just went right in.
But you know what happened? It disappears because you turn into your mom when you have kids.
Yes, I do. And my kids remind me of that all the time. Mom, you look just like Mimi.
I mean, it disappears. She was right. The problem is, it disappeared. The voice of her here. The thing is,
Yes,
it became you. The
it
voice
did
became
become me.
you.
It's scary.
I know. Tell me about it. I've lived it with my son.
Yeah, yeah. It's very funny. Yeah. So they're still shy. People are
Well,
still
actually,
shy?
we have someone commenting. I want to share with you.
Okay.
Lee Forsyth, it's great to have you here. She said, I have had experience with hypnosis and it helped with some fears to make them subside, but less success with other things.
Yes, is what I want to say about that. Um, yeah, I guess you were more open to letting go of the fears than those other things that you may have had wanted help with, and may have been more complex, or they have may have had other variables connected that you didn't take into account in doing hypnosis. Because hypnosis, oftentimes it would be great if hypnosis worked all the time with everyone, and it doesn't.
That's good
Um,
to know too,
oh,
It's
absolutely.
not the path for everyone, right?
Right. And for me, hypnosis was a learning. I was a horrible subject. I really was. And yeah. And so for me, it was I had to learn how to do hypnosis. So I had to practice it. I wasn't a natural. There were some people that just go right into trance. They're highly responsive. And I had to stay awake and fight for a while. So, and to realize that, yes, I still could learn hypnosis. And that's why I'm a good teacher, because it didn't come easy to me. And there are some issues that sometimes we chunk too big and we have to break them down in order to get them resolved.
Yeah.
So it could be that.
Yeah, no, and I think as well what we were talking earlier, that you go deeper and deeper and deeper in your healing process. So maybe you were ready for to open up,
Yes.
here, like at this level, and then there's a next level.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe for that next level, it's not necessarily hypnosis, but you need to do something first before
Yes.
going to hypnosis again, right?
Yes. Yeah. I can tell you a great story about a client of mine who came to me because she had a fear of, and over the course of 7 years after having, oh my gosh, she got indicted. She lost her law degree, law license. She went to jail. All of these horrible, horrible things happened to her. The safest place that she ended up being was behind the wheel of a car.
Wow.
And I just started to see her again. And this was a long time. This was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And subsequently, she flew a plane and she owned an airport. But the other day she said, "Nancy, could you tell me something?" I said, "What? How did you cure my fear of driving?" We never talked about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she had to go through all of that other stuff, and her fear of driving was really a metaphor for
It
everything
was,
else that was going on in her life. Yeah.
wow.
So
You know,
I always kept that in my head. I
yeah,
never talked about it, but I always knew that that's what she came to see me for.
yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And it's,
Yeah.
how everything starts to evolve in the direction of the healing, but all
Yes.
these things happen in between that sometimes are awful, sometimes are good, or whatever you want to, because we give a value to it. But it
Yes.
all brings you to a place of healing.
Yes, exactly. And that's what she needed to do. Now, if you would have asked her, "What, are you kidding? I wasn't going through all that." But that's what she needed
Yeah. Wow.
in
Wow.
order to feel the safest place she felt was behind the wheel of the car.
My God, that's crazy. That's crazy,
Is
but
that
it's a really,
crazy?
yeah, a mind-blowing story.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories like that with people. Yeah, they have to go through their journey,
Yeah.
and to know that they're doing it for some reason. They're focused, their attention is in that direction, even if the journey seemingly is off the path.
Yeah, a metaphor that I love using. I don't know if you know the story of the three blinds and the elephant.
I might, but go ahead.
Yeah, there are three blinds, and each of them is in a different part of the animal, of the elephant. So one is in the nose, another one is in the foot, and another one is in the tail. So they tell them, "You're touching an elephant. What do you feel?" So each of them start explaining things, and obviously it was completely different. And then they start fighting, like, "No, you're lying, you cannot be touching that," and blah blah blah, and the whole thing. And at the end, the analogy is like each of us has a perspective of things, but normally we don't have all the information. That's one of the of the learnings of this metaphor. Another is we don't have the whole big picture of it all, and we
Right.
need to combine what we know with other people to really understand the big picture or what
Yes.
really is going on. And
Yes.
sometimes in life we're touching the foot, then we touch the tail, then we start building like
Yes.
all these different parts to get sight of the whole
Oh,
elephant.
yes. Yes. And
I
we
use
have to
this
go through
metaphor
that.
for many things, but now that it completely sense that it can
There you
be
go.
used for this as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's amazing. I want to share something that Lee also wrote. If you get hypnotized to try to find solutions, how do you get the benefit if you aren't trying to remember? You just let it help and let go of the idea of holding the answer? This is an
I
amazing
guess,
question.
yes, I guess the answer is within. You know the answer.
Even though you don't want to hear it, but you know it.
Right. You know it. You ask, you do. So how many other things do you know? And that's part of hypnosis too, is discovering how much we already know.
Yeah, because all the
Yeah.
answers are inside of us. Even though it's a
Yeah.
cliche, it's true.
I know.
That's amazing. Nancy, this has been amazing.
Thank you, Stephanie. It
Eh,
was lovely.
yeah,
Yes.
I have loved our conversation. I know we can go for hours and hours
Yes.
because we
Yes.
both love this topic and
Yes.
you
I
have
do.
so many stories to share. But since we're coming to, we're about, it's time to finish. I would love to two things. First, if you can tell a story, the one that first pops up to your in your mind, that it's really mind blowing, and that now because of what we're talking, it really makes sense to tell it.
Oh my gosh, that puts me on the spot. I don't have. Oh my, oh my. I don't have a story offhand. I can tell you what comes to mind is toilet training, actually.
Okay, please
And yeah,
elaborate on the
yeah,
story.
yeah. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking about Erickson, and I'd go to see him 2 weeks about every 3 months,
Mhm.
and it was my ex-husband and myself. We'd bring him a series of questions, and we dropped them off at his house the night before the seminar, and then throughout the 2 weeks, he would answer the questions, and I had no idea what he was saying. I mean, this is now because I have the videotapes, because we have 100 hours of videotapes that actually have been donated to the Ericksonian Foundation, and they're online, of all of our learnings. But the first session of every week when people came to see him was basically the same. And he would tell this story about this little kid who peed in her pants. And the mother took her to this doctor, and the mother took her to that doctor, and no one could seem to help this little kid. She still peed in her bed. And so Erickson looked at her and said, there's a lot of things that you don't know that you know, and you know how to have a dry bed.
Wow.
And the little girl says, no, I've been caught. My mother says she's been cauterized and this and that. She doesn't. He goes, oh, yes, you do. He said, if you were on the toilet and you started to pee, and all of a sudden this big ferocious tiger walked in, what would you do? I'd freeze. He goes, that's right.
I truly love all Milton Erickson stories. They're so amazing.
Yeah. The
So spot
answer is
on.
within. And we know how to do so many things that we don't know because our learning are connected to context. And that is what the unconscious lets go of the context in which the learning is embedded. So we have access to the process and not just the content of our memories.
I love that story. I knew you were going to tell an amazing story.
So that is what the unconscious is. It's the receptacle for all the processes. And
Yeah.
our conscious mind has the content of the container that we can let go of.
Wow, amazing. Nancy, some final words to the audience before we leave?
Oh, final words. Well, yeah. I wish I had final words. I don't. I just have continual words.
Okay, continuous words. I love that.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's to be open to the wonder of life. I think that is a big one. Yeah, life is pretty full of wonder, and so are we as human beings. And the capabilities are tremendous, and we're still discovering what those are. So it's that open mind.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, thanks a
Okay.
lot. Thanks to the audience. I left all Nancy's contact details there for you if you want to get in touch with her, learn more, and even be a patient of her and learning to do self hypnosis so you can, start resolving issues that, Nancy can guide you how it can
Yeah.
help you, right?
Yeah, really, if somebody is pregnant, childbirth and hypnosis is wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So I've heard, like the whole process in the delivery process. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable
yeah,
when you do
yeah,
hypnosis.
yeah. So
Mine was so fast that
was it? Oh, I'm envious.
it was half an hour fast. I didn't even. I was supposed to
You
do.
didn't even know. You didn't even
I
know
did,
you had.
yeah, almost. I mean, I had the
Oh my
contractions for like
God.
8 hours, but the process of the kid coming out, I mean, he came out as a popcorn or something. I don't know. It was so crazy.
That is so
I didn't
amazing.
even reach. I was supposed to do it, yeah, in a pool. Forget it. We didn't get there, and I didn't even get to the how is it called, to the labor room. It was in the
Wow.
hospital room that I had my
Wow.
baby.
That's amazing.
It
That is
was.
so amazing. That was so different than mine.
I attributed that I did yoga the whole pregnancy, and
Yeah,
as
but
as well
yeah,
as
you
I
think
was working a lot in my mind and emotions during the 9 months before I conceive, and the 9 months during, like I did a lot of work. So
that
I attribute it because what I've heard and I read while I was pregnant, a little bit before actually of getting pregnant, is that all the things or many things that you haven't resolved kind of like pop up in the delivery
in the living
part.
room. Whoa. So I guess because mine was so different. I had 38 hours, 38,
Oh my God.
36 hours of labor and with hypnosis, with nothing. And I just wasn't going to let go. Even though I did hypnosis every day, I stood on my head the day I gave birth. I mean,
You
but
couldn't.
so
You
I
couldn't go
couldn't do
into
it
your body.
until he threatened that he was going to do a cesarean if I didn't give birth in the next 10 minutes. And sure enough, I did. So
You had to be pressured.
I had to be pressured. It's like, hell, you're going to do that.
That's a funny story.
Isn't that funny?
I know it wasn't that funny at the time, but now we
No,
can laugh about
now
it.
everybody has their motivation. What?
We all do. We all do. We just
We
have to
all
find the right
do.
motivation to do it.
Exactly. It wasn't the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah. No, it never is. It never is.
No, no. So it's to respect
Yeah.
the makeup of who we are. Yeah,
Exactly. And what needs to happen because
exactly. Yeah. It could happen. It's just finding the way for it to happen. And I
exactly.
think that's the other thing is people give up because it's not the way they want it to be,
Yeah.
instead of being curious as to how it's going to be, how
Yeah.
it's going to happen. Yeah,
No, I think with children, they are actually the ones who decide how to come into the world. It's not
I think
us.
so. I think
It's
so. My daughter is still fighting. No. It's
no, but
we're
it's
teaching.
like, and there's a reason the way that it's the way they come into the world, and that's part
Yeah,
of their healing
they
process
are.
later on because that's
I
been
think
part of my
so.
healing process
I
as
think
well.
it's so true. It is so true that who they are, they came into the world the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, thank you, Nancy, again for
Good.
being here
Thank you,
today.
Stephanie. That was great. Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. And I hope to see you next week. As I told you, most
Yeah.
of my lives are in Spanish. However, the YouTube channel is always there and you can see other lives and you can come anytime. And I'm so
Good.
happy to have you here.
Thank
So,
you. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
so thank you.
Yeah. So,
And
how much more are you going to be teaching people? I mean, this is so interesting. The
yeah,
font of knowledge that you have. Oh, yeah.
no,
I hope
thank
people
you.
come back all the time. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, I
Good.
love it. And part of it is, to bring the seat, as I was telling you earlier,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
see that there are many options to to have tools in life, to have tools for stress management and anxiety.
Yeah, and you're an incredible resource for that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I
So
love
thank you.
curating information and tools because I know
Yeah.
there's some that are really good, but it takes longer, and there are
Yes.
others that bring results immediately.
Yeah, and to have available that toolkit.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
not everything is for everyone. So as
Exactly.
well to, give them advice on
Yes.
what can work for them better because of the way they are, the way they think, the way their
Absolutely.
beliefs and their life is. It's different. I mean, some people will just the fact of being hypnosis, they can be very negative. So that's not a path for them. And it's all right.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Or for religious reasons, and that's completely understandable. So at the end is okay, what works for you? And I have all this toolkit that I bring
You
to
have a
my
wonderful
clients.
toolkit. Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thanks a lot,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
Let's say
Okay.
goodbye to the audience
Okay.
and see you
I
hopefully
We'll
next
see.
week. Have
Yeah.
a great day. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.